Cowherd. It's me, Jason McIntyre, in for Colin Cowherd. And I think you guys will be proud. This is 2 days in a row I have not done a Jets segment, but I am cherry picking some AFC East teams. Yesterday we did the Dolphins, was relentlessly positive, kind of, sort of, about Tua. Today, a little less so about the New England Patriots. So a couple friends of Fox, Julian Edelman, who comes on the show regularly, and Rob Gronkowski, they got together to chop up Jerod Mayo and the Patriots on Edelman's podcast called Games with Names. And here's what they said about why Jerod Mayo was built to be a head coach.
Jerod Mayo was just a phenomenon on the football field with lining everyone up, and then also in the meeting rooms as well. He knew where every player needed to be during any situation that occurred on the defensive side of the ball. I mean, he knew how to read offenses. He knew when to call out plays, and he was always correct when he called a play out, or else he was just making the whole defense just aware when that play was going to be called. He was just always alert, and you could always tell that that was going to translate into the next phase of his life.
Okay, sounds very, very positive. Jerod Mayo, who knows? Maybe he's the next Belichick. Vegas disagrees. Have you guys seen the Patriots win total? 4.5. Lowest in the league, below the Carolina Panthers and below the Denver Broncos. The Patriots are going to be really hot doo-doo this year, folks. I'm sorry to be harsh. Here's the reality. You don't want to follow a legend, okay? It is extremely difficult. Bill Belichick, I don't think there's any argument against him being the most successful, greatest coach in NFL history. I just quickly glanced at a couple guys who were also in that legendary category and left, and how the teams fared afterwards. Let's start with Don Shula, who was a pretty damn good coach in Miami, undefeated Dolphins, blah, blah, blah. So he left in 1995. The Miami Dolphins, since Shula left, have 3 playoff wins. You know, I was really good at math when I was a kid, not so much now, but that's almost 30 years, 3 playoff wins. Losing Shula, have not been able to find your slam dunk coach. Maybe McDaniel's the guy. Well, I like McDaniel. He's a good coach. But replacing a legend, extremely difficult. I found another one. This guy by the name of Joe Gibbs. Now, you guys, hardcore listeners of this show, my podcast, know I grew up in Northern Virginia. I was born in New York, but the family moved because my dad got a job. And the Washington, at the time, Redskins were everything in D.C. And Jason, who likes to go against the grain, contrarian Jason, I did not like Washington. And they had this coach named Joe Gibbs who was just freaking good. And they were always in contention, winning Super Bowls. And, I had to be there like, oh, go Jets, and Washington's racking up 10, 11, 12 wins. And I think they won the Super Bowl 55-10 or something like that. Of course, I wasn't betting at the time, but I was telling everybody Denver's going to beat Washington. I was way off. I just didn't like Washington. Joe Gibbs was a beast. You guys want to know how many playoff wins Washington has? Since Joe Gibbs left, last 25 years, they have 1 playoff win since Joe Gibbs left. A legend, a top 6 coach in the history of football. It's difficult to keep that ball rolling when you lose a legend. The institutional knowledge that walked out the door when Bill Belichick left, or was shoved out, whichever storyline you prefer, it went out and it's not coming back. And I looked at the depth chart, folks. Listen, you guys know I like Drake May leading up to the draft. I like Drake May a lot. By all accounts, it's going to be Jacoby Brissett's team this year. That's not a good thing. Jacoby Brissett is a solid backup. As a starter with no weapons and a questionable offensive line, it's bleak. Even the defense, which people are excited about, Belichick was a defensive guy. Do you think the defense is going to stay up there? Now, yards per play, they were 3rd defensively. That's very good. But you dug in closer to the numbers and some of the DVOA numbers, which take into account every play, and they were middle of the pack with the legend Belichick. There's no world where the Patriots and Mayo are successful this year. None. Not even if Drake May turns into freaking C.J. Stroud. It's just not happening. Maybe in a couple years, Mayo can get through these tough ones and they can bounce back. But, folks, I'm looking at this schedule. I know Joe Burrow starts off slow. They're not losing to the Bengals. Seattle, I guess it could be a win. We'll see. I don't know. Jets, that's a loss. Niners, that's a loss. Miami gets to go to New England. That's a loss. Houston was in the playoffs. Jacksonville's a potential playoff team. Jets, we're looking at 1-7 out of the gate for Jerod Mayo. And then, this guy doesn't know what he's doing. He was a great player. He was smart. He was the Tom Brady of the defense. Good luck, Jerod Mayo. Massive uphill climb. Let's go to Alex Curry with the news.
No. Turn on the news. This is the Herdline News.
Well, let's move to the NFC North, where all eyes are going to be on Caleb Williams this season after he was drafted first overall by the Bears. Now, Caleb has progressed well through minicamp and was quickly named the Week 1 starter by head coach Matt Eberflus. And tight end Cole Kmet spoke to the growth that he's seen in the rookie so far this offseason.
That whole draft process was so interesting just because you're hearing all these different things about him. But as I got to know him and as everyone else got to know him, you realize he's really just a normal dude, a really good kid and ultra competitive. And you can see why he's been so successful thus far in his football career and why he has those type of intangibles to succeed in the NFL. So I'm really excited for him. He's been putting in a lot of work, and you could see the progress that he was making throughout the OTA period.
It just makes me wonder, does anyone think that it was going to be perfect for Caleb Williams right out of the gates? Because there's a lot of stories written about him in the first minicamp, OTAs, that he was struggling, he was a little behind on his throws, but I mean, he is learning a completely new system. Making the transition from college to the NFL is going to be tough no matter who you are, but you also want them to struggle in practice. This is what you want to hear, because if they're not struggling in practice, that means they're going to be struggling in the games in the NFL. Like, that's not something you want to do. So, I mean, he knows what pressure is like. He's had pressure on him since winning the Heisman 2 years ago, and then all of last year struggling at USC, knowing he was going to be the first overall pick. All the eyes are going to be on Caleb Williams, not only because of that, but also because the Bears have never had that guy. They've never had a quarterback throw over 4,000 yards in a season, throw more than 30 touchdowns in a season. Like, Caleb Williams can very quickly be that guy in Chicago.
I was trying to think, who's the best quarterback they've had in like the last 30 years? Like Jim McMahon, Rex Grossman, Jake
Rex
Cutler?
is who they got to the Super Bowl with.
Yeah.
Like, it's just, that's the thing. They've never had that guy at quarterback.
So it's
They've
weird.
been a defensive team.
Like
they've prided themselves off that.
The expectations are super high, but the bar, is super
here.
low. Right. So Williams should be able to clear it. And the schedule early is favorable.
Yeah.
Like, it's not like top 5 defenses that he's facing out of the gate.
He also got lucky that he was the #1 overall pick and not going to the worst team in the league. Like, the Bears got this pick by trading for this pick the season before. So Caleb is in a great situation to succeed.
Yeah. That Titans team is going to look different defensively. I know they got Snead, but they're not world beaters. I think at home, Chicago wins that. At Houston will be a bit of a challenge.
That'll be tough.
That'll be tough. But listen, let's not act like Houston is world beaters just because they had a really good season. All right? Their defense was torched at times. I know they did a lot in free agency. Colts defense, nothing special. Rams, no Aaron Donald breathing down your neck. Panthers were a bottom 10 defense last year. I know they got some dudes. Yeah. And then the Jags. So, like, he starts out facing not very difficult defenses later in the season. Niners.
He doesn't really face the division until the back half of the season. And he should be sitting pretty with like an ease into the NFL season going into their bye.
Yeah.
In week 7.
I think they're a wild card team.
Yeah.
With Caleb. Yeah.
Definitely. All right, let's move to Philly because the Eagles started their offseason strong, but despite going 10-1, they dropped 6 of their last 7 games, leading to some questions. Jalen Hurts' steady and more reserved leadership style. Now, however, Lane Johnson has seen a louder and more vocal Hurts this offseason.
I think just this offseason, he's really done a good job of bonding with his teammates. I felt like the connection has definitely grown. A really big offseason. The work ethic has never been an issue. Tremendous worker, but just becoming a more vocal leader. And, I think whenever he speaks, guys listen up. And every year's a kind of a prove it deal to everybody when you're in that town. And, we all feel it to some degree, but Jalen's our guy moving forward. We love him. We respect him. And, nobody puts in more work than he does.
No, I don't think anyone was questioning Jalen Hurts' leadership, but it's good to hear that he's being more vocal because they lost their anchor on the offensive line in Jason Kelce. He was the heart and soul of that team. So now hearing that Jalen Hurts is being a little more vocal in that sense is always going to be a positive. And obviously he's coming off of two really tough ends to the season. Last year, they had one of the best starts going 10-1, then dropping 6 of their last 7. Then obviously the year before, losing in the Super Bowl to the